a good morning. My name is Attorney Clinton Paris, and I have the pleasure of serving as one of the co-hosts of In Touch News' radio show, Straight Up the Middle. Straight Up the Middle. Now, if you've listened to this show anytime, you probably figured out by now I don't go straight up the middle at all. I am actually far to the left. I might be so far to the left that I am actually on your right, but we'll leave that where it is for now. But I co-host the show with none other than Professor Tony Seabrook, and Professor Seabrook is a local professor here in Hillsborough County, Florida, which is where I'm located as well. Hence, you can see the beautiful winter weather that we're having. I'm outside just enjoying myself and happy to be here with you all this morning. And as always, it is an exciting time for me, one, to make it through another week, and then have the opportunity to join with you all as we talk about some of the things that are important to you this week. Good morning. Good morning. This is Attorney Clinton Paris. I think I just muted myself out, y'all. Apologize for that. So, we'd like to get the show started this morning by just talking about a lot of the things that are important to you. Myself and Professor Seabrook, we have things that we like to think about and whatnot, but this show is really a show about our audience and just sharing ideas and things of that nature. So, before we go any further, let me bring Professor Seabrook to the microphone. Good morning, Professor. How are you doing today?
Good morning. Good morning. And I don't want you to oversell our winter. It's only 57 degrees, so don't go putting this out there. That's how colder weather comes in when people start saying how cold it is, and it's really not that cold. Hey, but I enjoy it myself. But I'm doing
Yeah.
good.
No, good to hear. I want, and before we go any further, I want to do a couple of things. Last week, following our show on the Sole Purpose, Keith Harris had on the Brothers of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity, which I'm a member of, and they talked about their 110th anniversary, which is January the 5th. And likewise, this week, the ladies of Delta Sigma Theta celebrated their anniversary. I saw a text going around saying, "Text your favorite Delta 1913," which was a great day. And then yesterday, the country went pink and green, celebrating the founding of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. And of course, Professor, as you and hopefully everybody knows by now, Kamala Harris is an initiate of the Alpha chapter
yeah,
of
yeah,
Alpha
yeah.
Kappa
We know.
Alpha at Howard University. A proud bison. How about that? People say that our HBCUs don't produce strong products. We need all these schools producing great educated people. So just want to take a privilege of highlighting the Divine Nine as we roll out these anniversaries, and congratulations to the ladies of Delta and AKA on your anniversary celebrated this week. So Professor, so last week you kind of threw a wrench into the machinery. And I know that you have been bothered by, I guess, the lack of fleshing out and the taking serious of some of the election irregularities, the fraud, things of that nature. And I don't know that we on this show, and I know your co-host, are really let you say what you want to say about that and educate people who might otherwise not know exactly what it is that's bothered you so much that happened in the election. So I want to turn the floor over to you and share with us what it is that really got you so irate about some of the irregularities in the election and the fraud that's been alleged.
Well, the biggest thing that bothered me, and it led me to changing parties. Now, not that I changed to the Democrat Party, it led me to be a non-party affiliate. Um, it's what I perceive as just the spinelessness of the Republican Party. It's something that many of us conservatives, and that's basically how I would brand myself. Um, but when I left the Democrat Party, there was nowhere for me. One of the leading reasons of leaving the Democrat Party back in 2003 was there's no such thing as a conservative Democrat. Now, there are some Democrats that may say they're conservative, and I'm not going to argue that only you know if you're conservative or think you're conservative, but there is no faction within the Democrat Party that says, we're the conservative Democrats. So that was one of the main reasons. And then the Republican Party pretty much, as I saw it, branded themselves that way, and for the most part, spoke that way, led that way. But again, one of my issues with them, long-standing issues, is their spinelessness and actually doing something about what they say. At the end of the day, they tend to go along with it for the greater good of the company, of the country. So while I'm okay with that, this was a different election. This was, uh, I'm looking at. Okay, maybe it's me. Let me pull my mic up some. Okay, so I think they want me to move to the right some. Hopefully that's better. So anyway, my biggest issue was just the Republicans going through the motions, calling for election integrity, these investigations, and then nothing really happened. The lawsuits that were brought both by Trump's legal team and these others, uh, all of them were basically thrown out, and I don't see where they even tried to get to the meat of the issue. So the election integrity that I'm referring to is what came out of the first forensic investigation when the courts allowed what two, three, I don't know how many voting machines in Antrim County in Pennsylvania to be examined, and out of that, I said before, the error rate was over 60%, 67%, I think it was, and the error rate is only allowed to be 0.05. So just with that, even if it were one machine, that's problematic. And the reason why I say that's problematic is I have, I'm pulling up here, the Dominion, the Dom- Dominion, and Dominion is the voting system that were used in at least all of the swing states that we're talking about. Now, Dominion was used in other states as well, I believe. Um, but the states that they actually put up to juxtapose what Dominion systems could do was Texas against the other states. Texas refused to use it, apparently. Now, obviously, I don't have any more inside information than what's publicly available. And my concern is that big tech is massaging that, but that's a different conversation. But I have in front of me the Dominion Democracy Suite final report. Now, here's the thing. The first part of this investigation was done in 2018. What was 2018? Those were the congressional um, elections or midterm elections, and it was updated in 2019. So in 2018, there is evidence that's documented in this report. Hold on, I'm getting my. You do the wrong thing when you ask a professor to pull up his information, so I have my screen littered with documents. Page 7 of this report says that this is under the subsection examination approach, the procedures, and the results. So, and it goes on to say to ascertain the democracy suite, blah, blah, blah. The examiners observed the following. I don't know what this abbreviation is, but it doesn't matter. But what they observed was one of the machines did not allow a voter to deselect all choices in a contest after voting straight party when the voter attempted to do so. Instead, a warning message that required no user acknowledgement displayed above the above the contest, indicating that their implicit straight party selections would remain in effect. So that was one. That's the first one. The second one was the same machine. The final screen presented to the voter indicated that the voter was about to cast their ballot, even though the voter was only printing the ballot, which needs to be further scanned by the ICP. And again, I think that's one of their groups. So issues like this is not hearsay. You and I agree. I'm trying to get my screen back. You and I agree on the fact that I was really bothered, and bother may be too strong of a term. Well, no, it was. I was bothered that Rudy only had these affidavits of, oh, we're having the a voting place supervisor, signed an affidavit saying that he witnessed this and that. And I'm like, well, dude, that's just not going to get it. Anybody can say that. So I was really frustrated through this whole process, not because Rudy was doing it. I wanted Rudy to do it, but I even needed more proof. So it enraged me. This is past bothering me. It enraged me when I would hear the complete dismissal was there's no evidence, especially when you can show this. Now you're the lawyer. So wouldn't this be considered exculpatory? Something that's fact based, a
That depends.
forensic report.
Right. Well, the first step in any legal action, the first step is that you, the person or the entity, have a actual legal redressable issue. That's the first. And while it's you can bring a lawsuit for and against almost anything, uh, that's a really low standard. And the fact that I don't know in that document how that will be presented, that evidence will be presented to show some other legal conclusion. So it sounds impressive, like information. You know, the the only system we have is the judicial system that we have, and so I have to have faith that that system will, even if one court doesn't get it right, that's why you have multiple courts that you can go to that can correct when one gets it wrong. And so my suspicion would be adequate information was presented, and multiple judges looked at it and went, "Hey, this doesn't meet the standard." And I would think that somebody smart enough, Rudy's a competent lawyer, at least he was at one point in time. And some of these other people, they're not dumb lawyers. They would have structured it in such a way because I'm sure that there are enough conservative judges or favorable judges that are gonna let stuff get, going. They'll let it get to the next stage. And you hear about these lawsuits that get off the ground at least. I was shocked that none of them nowhere anyhow could get off the ground.
Well, and I was too. So which kind of lends itself to why it was so easy to get that mob of people um, heightened, because we're literally thinking the same thing. If and I thought this was different from just having a signed affidavit. When you have forensic group subject matter experts looking at voting machines, and this again seems to be different. But the way you solve it, if you're a guy, if you legitimately won something, if I won something legitimately, most people are like, well, all right, well, is that what you need to make yourself feel better? Okay, we'll have it in court. I mean, if you legitimately won, because you have 80
No.
million votes.
Here's
If
why you don't do that. Here's why you don't do that. Because the outcome in the legal system is not based on just facts, evidence, and law. It's based on the predilections of individuals in that system. So
mhm.
you don't go, you don't. I'm not going in that system to prove I'm innocent. That's not what you don't want to go do that. The state has a burden to prove that I'm guilty.
Right.
And I'm not going to volunteer to have somebody prove I didn't kill somebody, because there are a
Okay.
lot of folks in jail who didn't kill somebody, and they couldn't prove that. So no, you don't. That's reverse thinking. You have to make your case up front, and
Okay. All
so
right. So
evidently from the threshold level of stating a case, repeatedly very qualified lawyers, they stumbled out the blocks and were unable uh, to make that happen. And from that perspective, I think I have to. If it was only one court that threw it out, then I'd say, wait a minute, we need more people to look at this. But when you start getting in the double digits, and you get started getting, I think it's 60 cases, 59 or 49 total, various lawsuits of some sort, couldn't get off the ground. Here's the one thing I'll push back on the Dominion machines, because what you're basically saying to me is we can't trust Dominion machines.
right.
Is that what you're saying?
Right.
There are 19 states that use those machines,
Right.
and if we're saying that in all 19 states, you can't not trust them in some states, but then trust them in other states where the outcome wasn't the outcome that was desired. And so that again gives me the idea that this is a little bit of selective. picking of issues. I like the idea you said though that your issue is with the Republican Party not fighting hard enough.
Well, I would say that because it took them so long to get on board, and then and I said it
We
before. I
say
said it
get on board. Now hold on for a minute. Get on board with what though?
with this where they ended up at the January 6th um, certification, the electoral college certification.
Now let me hold you
There
right
were
there
hundreds.
though. But what about what happened with the Texas Attorney General's lawsuit? It seemed to me that a lot of states joined into that lawsuit.
Well, then that again, that's another example of a person who's not. Um, I'm not a law professor. I'm not
Right.
a law professional. So it only has to make sense to me. And
Yeah.
that's why they call it the jury of public opinion. So when the average person looks at something, the reason why black voters don't engage in the system, because from our view, it doesn't make sense. I don't need to know the details. I don't even need to know the technical jargon. I just know it doesn't make sense to me. Now, when you explain it, hopefully that gets me over the line. But a lot
Yeah.
of times it feels like, okay, that's just stuff that they say. But there were 150 Republicans. There were like 140 some odd Republican representatives. There were, I think, in the end, like maybe 10 senators that said that they were going to contest the election. But here is my biggest thing, and I asked you about it last week. The Electoral Act of 1877, 18, whatever it
Right.
was,
7-7.
that was their major contention. And to me, that made perfect sense. Again, you just explained it. Well, you don't want to get out there and say, okay, prove me wrong. Okay, well, take that guy out. Take those two out. Now we have this body who is tasked with this by the Constitution. It's something that they do. This is a different election. We certainly had a president of different sorts. Why not invoke that now? In any time in our history, other than when it was invoked before, why not now? This is the time that you want to speak to those 74 million people because you're not talking about some group this guy couldn't get out the vote. This guy is a magnet when it comes to this stuff. So if you're really talking about unifying the country and okay, look, because there are a lot of level-headed people. There were only 100,000 people that were in that protest that turned into a mob, an insurrection. I agree with those classifications after the end result. But out of 74 million, that's a drop in the bucket. Why not at least to appease those people? Say, we'll do this 10-day emergency trial, this emergency audit thing. Why not do that?
From my perspective, is I don't think you had adequate evidence to do it. Just because you have a mob in the streets, you can't start to try to appease the mob because behind every mob is another mob with its own set of grievances. That if they that becomes the methodology by which we resolve issues or people get to address things, we could go down that's a dangerous road. Now, most of those people, of course, represent many other people. And I was talking with someone the other day, and I said, "Well, how many rallies have you gone to? You're an active person involved, and so on." And I said, it's really rare I show up any place for anything. So when you get down to the people that show up at something like that, they're representative of a real, I won't say extreme group, a really motivated group, maybe a better word for it. But those people didn't come there because they were grieved. Those people showed up in Washington because they were invited and told to come. Come to Washington. They didn't get. This is not like the Million Man March or something that's organic. They were told by the president, January 6th, come to Washington so you can impact the actual congressional process of certifying the elections. I
And
think
there's
that's
nothing
why
wrong with that. Those are
I'm not
constitutional
saying he's
rights.
wrong. I'm not saying he's wrong. I just want to make it clear why these people showed up. They
Mm-hmm.
were invited to show up. This is not like Black Lives Matter where people at home and they're pissed and they go, "Hey, let's hit the streets, y'all," and everybody runs outside to try to make themselves heard by the people in power. This was an organized, and the more we find out about what happened on January 6th, Professor, the more we find out about the planning. But like I said, America is a system that has made it clear to me you're this is the system that we have.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain things that are there. I think I look to use those things to make things happen that I want to have happen. I don't like a lot. I don't like the political process. I don't like elected officials. I don't like them being bought up by corporate donation. And I don't like that most politicians, the best way to tell a politician is lying is if their lips are moving.
Exactly.
I don't like all of that stuff, but it's what we've got. And I got to want to be careful in tearing some of that stuff down because of what may come, otherwise. There's no guarantee that America will always have a democratic process. It will only have that process if we maintain that process. We can't undermine it. And I thought there are constructive ways that you address your issues. One of them was this: President Trump said during the election is rigged. When he was running against Hillary, it's rigged. It's rigged. The whole election, 2016. And that followed him saying the Obama process was rigged and Obama was an invalid president, but it was rigged, rigged, rigged. And then he won. And he established a commission to investigate elections. And then he dissolved his own commission.
Because, and why did he dissolve it?
Yeah, I'm sorry?
Why did he dissolve it?
Because he couldn't find these irregularities you're pointing to. There was no information, there was no evidence.
Well, let me jump in here. That sounds good. And you as a lawyer, you do a great job. And if I were any other guy, I would go, man, I was just completely wrong. Of course this couldn't happen. But I'm not any other guy. I'm like, you can't say there's systemic, and I'm going to take this out of what we're talking about. You can't say there's systemic racism and then point to things that go back to Jim Crow and segregation days, and then act as though there's no such thing as systemic fraud and how operations work within the government. The same people who hold a seat for 40 years, you can't hold a seat for 40 years without having ties, without being able to break some rules, and without able to wink and nod.
I agree with you in that.
Okay, so and if you agree with that, then you have to agree that if systemic racism can stay around and rear its head and still have the same bite when it needs to, and not even when it needs to, when it does, then why are we so surprised that we have this other part in the government, how people were elected for many years, these secret societies, these secret committees, not secret societies within the government, but we know there are committees. We know there, what came out during, who was it, early years of Trump, but about this slush fund that lawmakers would use if they had some type of sexual,
some kind of claim against them, right, pay it off.
So if you know those things are in place.
I am with you. The issue becomes, what impact does it have on our democratic process? One, and two, how do you deal with it? How do you deal? And I don't know that those are issues that we're seeing in these allegations of fraud, and because there is fraud in every election. Every election, you find some dead people that voted. You find somebody signed for somebody. A box got missing here or there. And the reason you have that, Professor, is because you have people running the election ultimately. You're going to have some things that go wrong. Some of it's intentional. Some of it could be accidental. But it happens. Like, they do a recount. The vote always changes. They count it again, it changes again. They count it again, you get that. The question is, the systemic part. And I thought the thing that fell apart for me in the allegation of fraud were the fact that these things seem to target African American areas.
Well, I didn't get that, because here's the thing. If you can show me, we talked about it, exculpatory stuff, factual based, if you have a subject matter expert, and what I never heard, and I still haven't heard it today, I haven't heard a statistician say, no, that this is not impossible. He could have had these things. I've never heard a rebuttal to the statistical evidence. And what you guys are saying, well, there's no facts there, because it seems like you guys want a smoking gun, like you want some election guy to go, okay, well, I was paid some money to change the votes. Like, those things don't happen. We're talking about unseating, preventing a duly elected president from a second term. Well, we know there were never Trumpers. We knew there were people in his own party who hated him. All of the Democrats hated him. Many world leaders hated him. you don't need much more to have a coordinated effort to either, hey, turn your head, or you probably just take some people out. So you don't have to worry about people whistleblowing. You just take some people out of the process and you have a different process. Let me make this one last statement as pertains to the actual system. I'm an old IT guy. Now, this is what I teach, but I'm an old IT guy. When I was hands-on in the late 90s, early 2000s, I was actual hands-on tech. There was software that I could run to wipe a system. But there was also software someone else could run behind me and bring that information back. Now, in more recent time, we know that a lot of IT departments can the read write. You have to like wipe a drive 3 times with a different algorithm to really get rid of certain data. On a dead hard drive, back in the late 90s and early 2000s, on a dead hard drive, I could hook up an IDE connector, hook that to a working system, and because I just need power to it and pull over files. So that was in the early 90s and 2000s. There's no way you can tell me that voting software that's tied to a state-run databases, anytime you have, let's just say 50 different databases, and you have someone hell-bent on cheating, and it's a coordinated effort, you're never going to find it. Here's why I think a lot of Republicans like me, or conservatives, because I'm no longer a Republican, conservatives like me, here's why I find a little bit of relief. There's no foolproof crime. At some point, in a short history from now, at some point, something's going to be revealed, and it's going to be software related. Because right now the spotlight is on it, and I don't think it's going away. So
all right, real quick. So we're getting the hand signal from the studio that we got to get ready for our break. Real quick. So I think you fleshed that out, and I think it's courageous of you to explain that, put yourself out there like that, Professor. I don't know how it strengthens the Republican Party losing a strong conservative voice like yours, but we'll talk about that. So real quick, everybody, again, I want to let you know that, look, we want to give you a chance to participate. So let me give you a little bit of information. So you can call into our show. The call-in number for us on Zoom is 929-205-6099. That's 929-205-6099. You may need to put in a code. Here's the code: 834-088-74026. Let me give it to you again: 834-088-74026. You can use that to make a comment, or you can call the studio. The studio number is 813-444-9588. 813-444-9588. I know you've heard a lot of information this morning from the professor, and I just wanted to give him a chance to, I got a lot of email. I got a lot of questions, and I'm like, hey, look, I can't answer questions for you. You got to answer yourself. When we come back, we got a lot of other stuff to talk about. Sleepy Joe not so sleepy. Sleepy Joe has rolled out a 100-day plan for America. We're going to get these vaccines out. Trump has been impeached a second time.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that, definitely.
He wants to be historical. Guess what? He is absolutely historical. He is now impeached a second time. People are getting vaccines and not getting vaccines. And then, of course, the big question is this: who else is Trump going to pardon? Is he going to pardon himself, Ivanka, Jared, the whole crew, and his pet dog? So we'll see about that all. Hey, hang in there. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about some other things that are happening and anything that's important to you. Listen to In Touch News Radio, reality radio where everybody can be a star. We will be right back after this quick break.
In Touch Radio anywhere, on your phone.
I'm listening to right now, man.
In your car.
I'll keep that going.
On your computer. It's a new world, baby, and we are global. In Touch Radio.
There's going to bring me a baby brother. We can do this together.
All right, let's go.
Storks know how to keep kids safe. Do you?
What?
Oh my gosh, you don't know.
I know.
You don't. Oh man, you laugh when you're uncomfortable.
No.
Making sure your child is in the right car seat is one of the steps to safer travel.
I will rock this.
You will rock this.
To know for sure that your child is in the right car seat for their age and size, visit safercar.gov/the right seat.
Cool. Very cool.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
It's important to plan ahead for emergencies, like the storm. When it kicked in, we had a plan.
Separated.
We were able to get in touch with each other in no time.
Idea how to find each other.
The whole experience was
the
fine.
most frightening 10 hours of my life.
If there's one piece of advice I'd offer other moms out there, it's to stay calm and keep to the plan.
Message.
Some parents plan ahead, some don't. Make sure you know where to find your family in an emergency. Start your plan at ready.gov. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
All right, we're back live on the radio. After radio, everybody can be a star. I am Clinton Parrish, one of the co-hosts of Straight Up the Middle, and my other co-host is Professor Tony Seabrook. We have heard I don't think we've ever heard you talk that much on your own show, Professor, as you did the first half of the show. I also want to give a quick shout out to DJ Anna back in the studio, keeping everything operating for us. And I hope that your 2021 is off to a spectacular start and that the world is treating you like the queen that you are. So just want to say good morning to you back in the studio. All right, Professor.
But by the way, I get my soundtrack from Anna too. I mean, and I need that song you're playing coming in, Anna.
Yeah.
My playlist.
No. We appreciate you. Somehow you keep us on track. So that is greatly appreciated. A lot of other people have failed at that in our lives, but you clearly succeed at it. So thank you very much. So I don't even know where to go from there, Professor. I mean, look, let me, just to be fair, how is Joe doing as a president-elect so far?
I think Joe is showing his true colors. And what does that mean? Joe doesn't have an original thought. So what I'm seeing from Joe Biden is what I think the gang is telling them. Joe, okay, this is what you need to do.
Wait, hold on for a minute. Who's the gang? Let me make sure I'm clear.
It's more or less Nancy Pelosi. But I think it's going to be, I think there's some other people in the background, but Joe doesn't have an original thought. So this whole thing about what he's going to do in his first 100 days, what is like a 100,000 vaccination? Is it 1 million vaccinations? Whatever it is.
It's 50 million. It's 50 million. 50 million.
Okay. That's, God, I forget the list that he ran off. But what he ran off is what Trump is doing now. He's just going to put his own spin on it, but there's nothing new there. But let's get back. But let's kind of go underneath. I just found out, and I don't know much about David Kessler other than what they're saying is where he was the guy in the Clinton administration that released that anti-abortion pill that wasn't all that great. One of the things, and the reason why that jumped out at me because Clarence Thomas, you know, your guy, the guy you like a lot. I'm being facetious.
Uncle Clarence.
Uncle Clarence. He's already, been making headways as far as what he thinks needs to happen. That the Supreme Court missed an opportunity to take up an abortion case so that they can solidify the right anti-abortion right to free speech, because that's becoming squelched. And the reason why I'm still talking about Joe, because Joe picked this guy, and this guy is tied to what most people in the anti-abortion legislation, he's not held in high regards. This also tells, or I think signals to conservatives, Joe Biden is still establishment, because you always mention with the voting machines, they target African-American population. Well, what do you think of the abortion industry? They kill more African-American babies. Now I am repeating, because I'm not that statistician. I'm repeating a stat that I think is verifiable. Where those clinics are placed primarily, who they target, and when they're under attack, who do they use as their primary example? You know, African-American women needs healthcare, whatever they call it. So in that regard, it's kind of what most of us saw coming. And I said it from the beginning. He's a hollow shell. He's the guy being president was on his bucket list. No one took him seriously then. And they're not really taking him seriously now. He's just going to be the vehicle that the left gets their agenda done by.
So I think he's off to a solid start.
Now, of course you do.
You know, he's looked very presidential. He seems to be.
He's been practicing for 47 years.
I'm just doing what is. I'm glad he had him. So thank you. And then, like with Trump, we saw he had not, but he seems to be giving a steady hand of leadership to the country. And while people may not agree with where he may be going, in total, I have not seen anything that's made me overly concerned about Joe and what he may or may not do as president. There are no real alarm bells going off that I'm, making me worry so far. I like some of the issue that the big issue that we got to get control of is the virus.
Right.
And, Warp Speed got us a vaccine, and now we have to use Warp Speed to get that vaccine out. And it seems to be stumbling out the gate, so to speak. And part of that is, of course, the lack of a national plan for distribution of it. The idea was, okay, here states, you all now go do it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a great idea if the states actually were able to do it and administer it. But what we're finding out is that the states are struggling with it. Mainly, a lot of them don't have the resources. They're trying to leverage their way into using a private sector to go along with that. So it looks like Joe wants to put a lot more money into the federal government stepping in and helping get these vaccines out to people, so they can be taken care of.
That's interesting. That's an interesting take, given that New York and these other states who have the highest rate of COVID death were pushing back against Trump, and they're not going to let Trump tell them what to do in their state. So now it's interesting to now, well, let's step back. How that COVID vaccine came out. The owners, presidents of these companies, right before the election, they were tight-lipped and careful not to say that, yes, we have the vaccine. It was only after November 3rd that they came public. So to say that the Trump administration had a good idea to put in the hands of the states, but it's been a stumbling block, also tells you that they don't want Trump to have any more credit than what he did. They don't even want to give him credit for the Warp Speed, because remember all the naysayers, there's no way that this could happen. Well, when it happened, because of how he relaxed some of those regulations, that would have stopped any vaccine from rolling out. Now, we all know it missed clinical trials, and that's the kind of stuff that concerns me. I can be convinced otherwise. I'm not rushing to get that vaccine, but I can be convinced otherwise. But this backhand that it's always convenient because Trump is the most hated guy in the world. That's going to be his legacy. He is the most hated president. But to backhand him, well, he gave us this, but it just wasn't that great. So this next guy's going to help us out. Well, they intentionally stranglehold how it was being released. They muffled that it was even available until after the election. And they want Joe to be installed because he didn't win anything. They want Joe to be installed.
But Professor, I mean, there are a lot of assumptions made in there. It's easy to say everybody in the world, but the 74 million that voted for Trump are against him. But I thought he was a friend of corporations, and I thought he was great for deregulating. I thought businesses like Trump.
There's no honor among thieves. You know that.
And we saying his actions produce the greatest accomplishment economy, according to him. So it's kind of baffling me that you've taken this position that everybody was against Trump, even the pharmaceuticals who he made these great contracts with and deregulated their industry so they can make more money. Why would they want to get rid of him?
You know why? Because they weren't really big on him. But a year when this thing started, they had no idea what was brewing up as far as the re-election. The economy was doing great. Trump was looking to win you could forecast, unless something major happened, Trump was going to have a second election. A second victory as far as win re-election.
No way. He was going the first, he shouldn't have won the first one.
But he did.
And he was definitely not going to. There were just so many people who would regret it voted for him. He never, ever moved in the polls. He never moved in the bowl.
He gained 10 million extra votes. What do you mean?
No. And the other side gained more people came to vote because they hate the guy. You know, he got 10 million, but another 30 million showed up that hate him, that were pissed because they stayed.
No, you guys got another 30 million votes. You ain't getting another 30 million people. We're still contesting how Joe Biden won. That's going to go down too. He'll have an asterisk beside his name. 74 million people just doubt that he got more votes. He got more votes. He didn't get more people, but we'll let that go because I'm going to beat that drum forever.
How about this? Okay, so something that you might enjoy talking about is the second impeachment. I was very happy to see Donald Trump get impeached the second time.
I know you.
Let me tell you why. I think Donald Trump has always wanted to be a unique president. This makes him as unique as possible historically, that he was now impeached a second time. I wasn't in favor of the first impeachment. I didn't think that's the way, or what they were alleging reached that level. This, however, is very, very different. And I think his lawyer up in Pennsylvania, in his motion to withdraw, as Trump's counsel put it best, he is repugnant. And he maps out in that his motion to withdraw how Trump created the January 6th environment for the insurrection against the United States, how he drummed it all up, how he invited the people there, how he ginned them up at the event, and boom, off he went, with this, the insurrection. So I've always thought.
But you always say speculation, but that's pure speculation. And at least they had a call.
No. Those are conclusions. Those are conclusions from the information.
They're not built on facts. That's your feelings, and you can't win.
I'll walk you through, and you'll say you can say whether you agree or disagree.
Okay.
One, that Trump after the election or leading into the election has said, "This is all fraud. They're trying to steal your country." That's a fact.
Right. That's a fact.
After the election, Trump refused at any point in time to acknowledge the results of the election or accept the outcome.
Okay.
That's a fact.
Okay.
And that he kept saying, "We're going to do something about the election."
Okay.
To his followers.
Okay.
So they were confident, we're going to do something about this. And he told them, we got to do something kind of along the lines of what you said, is because there's so much fraud, it's being stolen, and they're stealing your country. I know who they are. And then they planned this rally on the 6th. And as we get moving along closer, he keeps talking like there's some smoking gun and stuff like that. And then he says, and Mike Pence. That's really what I think got people going, was this issue with Mike Pence. And Mike Pence kind of became the fallback guy. No matter whatever happens on the 6th, you can depend on Mike Pence to do what he needs to do, X, Y, Z. I'm counting on him. And then he goes to Georgia that Sunday, I think it was, or maybe Sunday before the Tuesday, and says, we're really counting on Mike Pence, and hopefully he won't let us down. And I'll see you all, I don't know what it was, motion with the march to take back America, whatever that rally was.
Mm-hmm.
I'll see you all there. And at that rally, he denounces Mike Pence. And he tells those people, I'm with you, and make sure those people over at the Capitol hear you, and so on and so forth. And then Rudy gets up and talks about litigation by combat. And then the other guy gets up and talks about, and we're going to go kick some ass. And I'm with you. And that revved the people up to what they only thought they could do is go over to the Capitol and do something about this. And
so the same thing that happened all summer? Same thing that happened all summer with the Black Lives Matter?
No, completely different.
What?
You didn't have the president leading that collectively. You didn't have the president. It's one thing you got some some dreadhead standing on a box in a park.
No, we had Congress. We had Nancy Pelosi. Nobody
said
Schumer.
Go to Congress. Nobody said, I'm with you. You got to stop these people.
Yeah, they say get in their face. Don't let them off the hook whenever you. Yeah, they said a lot of that stuff. Yeah,
but
go ahead.
Individuals. See, because Black Lives Matter focuses on particular situations that are happening with individuals. and rooting that kind of that remaining vestige of oppression in America, rooting it out, event by event, rooting it out, event by event. When it raises head, you got to hold it accountable, rooting it out. And I'm not in favor of people taking over cities and burning and looting. That's not how we really advance our society. And in part, that may have led these people to think, wait, listen, if taking to the streets and actually being destructive is our course of action, well, maybe I should do that too. But when you rev that up and they go to the Capitol, I thought this warranted, we cannot have in any way, shape, or fashion Americans in our country attacking the institution and for the purpose of stopping it from performing its governmental duty. And that can't be led and charged by the president. So that's why I'm in favor of the second impeachment and the historical nature for Donald Trump. He gets to now go around and say how unique he is because he's been impeached. He's been impeached twice. But inside of that, Professor, I think we have another issue. And I love your perspective on this. Is our two-party system making us too divisive? You're this or you're that. You said you're independent, but on election day, you're going to have to vote for a Democrat or Republican.
Exactly.
You got to pick a side. Still, right. It's a time that we have actual a real legitimate, functioning, impactful third party that can impact both sides such that they have to now compromise. Nobody gets to run to their corner, and to strengthen my position, I even go further out into my corner. Mm-hmm. But is it time that you think in this Trump position or someone else? Because right now, I think on the left, we're unified. We're very
unified, right? You're unified now because you have a common enemy.
Because I thought if I heard you say it correctly, Trump never unified Republicans. The never Trumpers just kind of stood in the back of the room waiting for an opportunity.
Trump's presidency, again, I said it last week, is symptomatic of a bigger problem. We like to blame somebody. We always we need somebody to blame. Someone has to take the blame for how bad we are. We tell kids, no, you did that. You can't say when you point at somebody, the more fingers pointing back at you. America has a different problem. At this point in time, we can blame President Trump, but we now know what the Democrats will do when they totally hate a president. You said that you favored this impeachment over the first impeachment, but his speech that you have, everything you're saying was, it's really, there's nothing illegal about anything you laid out, and I don't have to be a lawyer to say that. Well, because he said it was rigged. He was talking as a citizen. He was talking as a president too.
He cannot, but he can't.
What do you mean he can't? He ran as a citizen. He didn't run as the president. He has to run as a citizen, right?
An example. I went out to play golf with the pastor one time. Got to play golf. It's the guys. Guys start up, cigars start coming out. Beer starts coming out, and the pastor says to me, "Now, while we were out here playing golf, I'm not the pastor." I said, "No, you still the pastor, and I better not see you get one of those beers over there and start guzzling." I said, "No. You're a pastor. We're the president. You don't get to not be the president." Ask Michelle. Ask Barack. Michelle treated him wherever he was at all times. He was the president, and she got to play first lady. At least that's how I see it. So he never gets to say in public, "Now I'm not talking as the president." He is. And particularly because the people elected him. It's different if you're like you and I. My professional job is that as a lawyer. That's what I do. That's not who I am. I think when you're elected, you don't get downtime to not be the elected official because people have chosen you to do something on their behalf that they can't do.
Well, I disagree with that. You know why? Because in the last 10 years, ask those people who've been, let's just put it in Trump's presidency. But it's happened really for the last decade or so. Ask people who've been let go for doing something on their free time and they've been let go from their company. So,
and I disagree with that. I'm absolutely opposed to that.
Whether you disagree or not, it happens. We're not saying do you like it. It's a fact.
I agree, but I disagree. I disagree we're doing that now. Here's the dynamic of that. If I'm a company and I think that something that you do privately is going to impact what we do as a company to make our then I get that as a business owner. But I don't think in your private time, I don't even want to know what you do. I don't care what you do. Keep that and I would suggest and keep that away from here. My personal and on my business time, like I told one of my employees when they had the whole Kaepernick thing, I was not in favor of Kaepernick kneeling on the sideline at a game. He's at work. Go work, and whatever your employer
hear you say that.
Whatever your employer wants you to do. And I told one of my staff members, I said, listen, if we have a new client out in the lobby, and on your way down the hall to go meet the client, you decide to stop and take a knee for social justice, keep walking out the front door. Because here on my time, I need you doing things that are productive for us. Now, we have to make calls, and I think there's a great movie that just came out called One Night in Miami, and we watched it last night. Oh my God, I just was so moved with the philosophical approach to dealing with how do you try to impact the world from where you are. Is that your responsibility? Do you have to? I mean, it really is a good movie. I just got another hand sign saying that we're almost out of time, Professor, mainly because somebody talked a lot earlier. Yeah, out of time. I want to get to this, though. Last thing on my mind this week, I'm going to let everybody go. What surprise pardons are you anticipating coming from Donald Trump? Who's going to be the surprise for you?
I don't know that I have a surprise. As a matter of fact, I didn't think he had enough time. I thought he would have to have done that by now.
All he does up until I think noon on Monday or Tuesday on Tuesday, whatever day, Tuesday.
Well, he can't pardon himself. Mike Pence would have to do that. And Mike Pence would have to be somehow on some ceremony be, crowned president to do that. That's my understanding. Am I not correct?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, there's some arguments that you can't pardon yourself.
Yeah.
I don't president. I don't know why you couldn't. I mean, but I don't think
he can. So unless you can do that in the private ceremony in the back, out. Hey, Mike, come here for a minute. Sign this. You're president. Okay. I have this list of people.
What about Rudy? You think Rudy gets a pardon?
If he does that, then yeah, Rudy needs one. I don't know about Bannon.
I'm worried about Rudy because I heard that Trump said don't pay his legal bills. So I feel nervous.
Those are New York guys. Those guys, they'll get paid somewhere, and neither one of them are hurting for money. So the only one who needs to worry about it is Jenna Ellis. That's the one who doesn't have an inside. She doesn't have any inside with Trump, so she needs to worry about getting paid.
But you don't think I anticipate that Rudy gets a pardon. I think Bannon's going to get a pardon. I think you're going to get a rash of really crazy pardons that we didn't anticipate. Coming down. I wouldn't be surprised if he pardoned himself, and then the lawyers figure it out. But either way, I think that America's going to be into a crazy last few days of his presidency. How do you intend on spending Inauguration Day if you plan on doing anything whatsoever?
I'll just post a meme, Joe cheated. I mean, something like that. I'll be that guy. No, but here's what I'll say along, because I see we only have 2 minutes left. Here's what I say on my outtake. The impeachment that we just talked about, I think, and we know Mitch McConnell says he's not going to take that up. Schumer comes in January 21. We'll try to take that up. If he does, I see, just what I've heard, I see Trump's legal team, whatever he has left of a legal team, filing suit to block it. I see some of those. Maybe it'd be, who got the award? Jim Jordan? No, he's a representative. Maybe it's Graham, but I see some Republicans doing the same thing to squash it. Hey, look, the guy's gone. But I ultimately see this going up to the Supreme Court because I just don't think the Democrats will let it go. They hate this guy, and they just want to make sure he can't even rear his head for any other election.
Yeah, I do. I think they do. They think he's not good for America. Thankfully, there are enough good Republicans that agree that he's not good for America. And I think they're going to join forces with the Democrats in the bipartisan nature of making sure this guy goes away from the public. It happens. Just want to quickly close out. We're out of time here. Just want to wish everybody a safe and happy Martin Luther King Day. Remember, it's a day of service, not a day off. So please engage in some type of service in your community, wherever you are. Be safe, and hopefully we will see you back again here next week. And thank you all for tuning in. Professor, have a great week.
All right.
See you.